Hey everyone, welcome to the third discussion of Ships of Merior by Johnny Wirtz. Today we're discussing chapters 9 to 12, and it will be spoiler filled for everything that happens up to now. And it's the second book of Wars of Light and Shadow. I'm trying to remember everything we must do in the introduction. And we're reading at about 4 chapters every 2 weeks. And we hold these discussions every 2 weeks. And if you want to join us for the read along, join us on the discussions, sign up for the paid chewing forum and come check out the scheduling and other information there. With that, off to some introductions. Chibi-Po, would you like to start us off?
Hi, long time reader and fan of Jenny's work, and I have my head is empty, no thoughts. I've been doing a lot of Pride stuff this week, so I'm just like, so I have no real introduction to this week. I'm just like, I'm go sleep now.
Okay. I'm Jared from the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel. Recent Jenny Wirtz huge fan convert. So, this is my first time going through Ships of Merior and enjoying it.
Nice. My name's Chris Mullins, sometimes YouTuber, not this week, maybe next week. And first time reader of Wars and Light and Shadow as well. And I suppose new convert to this style of work is definitely fair to say.
So, what did everyone think of chapters 9 through 12?
Well, they're great, as always. Yeah, we have quite a few interesting incidents happening in these chapters. I guess you could call this like the meat and potatoes of the book, if you will. You really get you get some incidents that happen that kind of define the characters a little better, and then you get a lot of information about some of these characters in here. And I thought that was pretty cool. But also, like at the start of chapter 9, we were kind of introduced to a bunch of new characters with in the Bridian household, with the Duke of is it Alistron? Is that what you say?
Alistron, yeah.
Alistron, yeah.
Brothers Sabridian.
Yeah. And that was actually quite a lengthy segment, kind of introducing all those brothers and those characters through interaction with Dakar and Arathon. And I was, I was like, wow, when I was reading it, I was like, this is a really long exchange. And it got exciting because Arathon's running around kind of doing his little shadowy thing now. And, and
hilarious.
Yeah. And, so he's kind of taunting them, and he's, and
they're making fools out of him, and I'm like, okay, this is hilarious.
Yeah, and it was good because it was a change of pace compared to what we were used to, and it's like, wow, it was a long introduction to all these new characters, and I enjoyed it. It was quite fun, and it was quite fun to see Dakar, kind of screwing up. And that, I don't know if what you guys think, maybe was part of Arathon's plan too, of course. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, he says as much. He's like, yeah, I figured you would betray me, and I wasn't clear exactly on how he got in.
How Arathon got in.
Yeah. But somehow he did. So
yeah, and he kind of left Dakar to his fate, really, because once it was done and Dakar was left there, Arathon didn't go back from or anything. He left him there to deal with these brothers, Bridian there. So you were kind of wondering what they were going to do to him for a minute there.
I think that bit's quite interesting, isn't it? Though how he kind of uses the car to a certain extent because he knows he's going to do something, but he's not willing to take him on. But then when the car gets out again, then it's fine for the car to toddle along with him again. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
seem to be like there's any hard lines for Arathon in terms of, you've fooled me once, kind of shame on me, fooled me twice, shame on you, kind of thing. Um, and that he's just happy to whoever's going along just as a means to an end, but actually no hand on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not
Oh,
sure if
go
he's happy or if he's just accepting of the fact that he's gonna be there.
Mm.
Um,
I think he kind of sees it as part of like an obligation to some deer.
yeah,
That's why he sticks around, and he's and I think it's come up more than once. Is he doesn't really hold grudges.
right.
Like it's like
Mm.
he'll definitely get angry. Though it usually takes a fair bit, but he like due to his gifts, he knows why people are intrinsically what motivates them, and he understands it and just like auto forgives it, basically.
Auto forgive.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
He
autocorrect.
does mention to Lera. I think he says something about having one person forced on him already. What companion forced on him already. He did not wish for another. So I think, yeah, I agree that it's probably something he sees, whether as an obligation or whether he sees no way out of, because of the fellowship's designs. I think he knows that he seems to be that he can't get out of it, or that's what he thinks for the time being.
Right.
Um, for how he got in to the castle or into the dungeon, I was wondering if he had cloaked himself in shadow and got in as they opened the locks. That was my best guess about how he got in. That's why he was counting on the car to betray him. Did anyone else have other ideas for how he may have gotten?
I think that checks because like he can um basically, yeah, I know some of the stuff he can't do, but he can like we know he can disguise himself, and I'm pretty sure he can bend the apply color and stuff to his shadows. So
Yeah.
um, I think he could like basically make himself invisible if he was so inclined.
Yeah, I think I kind of automatically assumed that that
Hmm.
kind of happened. Like
Hmm.
I didn't look for that explanation, so I didn't really like Chibipo, like you said, you kind of missed it how he got in, and I didn't even think about it. I just assumed he did something.
Yeah,
you know,
I
Hmm.
think we just
if
seen the
nothing else,
fallout of
he
it.
could have like waylaid a um with between his shadows and his master bar, just get someone to sound to make them look the other way, and then he can just slip by uh,
Hmm.
masked by shadow, and they'll never see him because he can probably cover his sound through his master bard abilities.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's sort of like the fallout between the brothers is very much, well, we can't explain it, so we don't want to explain it because this will actually be troublesome if we have to explain how somebody could break through all of our defenses and get in behind. So it was like kind of, it was a bit Batman-esque, wasn't he? The whole time he was in there, because he just kind of appeared, he snuck in, and even when he was trying to get out and he was causing mayhem, he was trying his best not to hurt anybody. It was like no fatalities and all of that kind of stuff. So he was very much in full Batman mode, I felt.
but fatalities did happen, right? Because
Yes, they did.
later on in the book, we hear that the bad
9.
stuff that went down in
I
Hmm.
believe it was
that
9
town.
people
Yeah,
died.
7 or 9 or something like that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
then what was interesting though is then after he leaves, a Sanda shows up,
Mm-hmm.
and now he's showing his power again by wiping out memories. I was like, whoa, okay, that's pretty heavy duty there. Uh, and he gives
That
them a
was
choice.
interesting, but more interesting, I thought, and I hope he agrees this. Now we know, um, or at least we got our first indications about what the mist wraith is.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Oh, okay, yeah. What was that? What was that? The Mist Wraith.
uh, he talks about it. Once they sent uh, exiled people who had similar inclinations to explore, this type of technology
Yes, the
through
gunpowder. Right.
Southgate,
Mhm.
and those people did, um, eventually develop technology and did something that created the mystery.
Yeah, because he went into a lot of his history, talking to them, and he had some really good explanations into some of his past, and I found that fascinating.
Where's the book? Get the book. All right.
I love that whole section where you got kind of that stepping back in time as to kind of like, it was almost like an anti-nuclear kind of part and speech, wasn't it? The dangers of nuclear weapons and why it's important to keep track and keep tabs on all of that kind of technology. Otherwise, if there are no caps, then the world will end and there'll be no
Yeah. Did he actually
fallout from it.
mention like nuclear weapons or?
No, they didn't. But
No,
just kind of
okay.
like this idea of having
just
weapons of mass destruction, kind of
mass
like
destruction,
they have. Yeah. That how dangerous and why it's important to keep some controls on that.
Yeah, and he mentions the power of the old dragons, and the interesting line I found in here was he mentions an engine that they had to take to flee the horrors of their past, and was plucked from the transit across the deeps between stars. I mean, is that like a spaceship or what is that?
By this point, if you wanted to, you could read the short story "The Sundering Star."
Okay, would that tie into this
background to that?
Yeah.
It would also get some background into the Coriani, as well as another faction that we haven't met yet. But so you could read the Sundering Star now, but I'd probably wait till Storm Fortress.
Which
one of the groups. Storm Fortress is book 8.
8. Oh, okay, that's a ways off.
Yeah. But I like this part. It's relevant to what you said. How can you know? Demanded Branzian. The sturdy, capable figures, tucked one inside of another, spasm tight as Asundir looked up. I know because I was one of 7 who caused such a thing to happen on a scale this land will never see.
Yeah.
The merciless flood through the arrow loop touched eyes gone limitlessly bleak. The humanity in them was a fearful thing, compared to a burden more desolate and weary than any charge borne by a mortal. It scarcely matters to you here, Asundir said. The horrors I helped to create were inflicted on another world, far distant and inconceivable centuries in the past. They are the reason for the 7's sworn fellowship as Aethera became our choice to protect.
Yeah, that was really, this whole section was really cool for that very kind of thing, and explanations and stuff.
Yeah, and even how he gives the brothers a choice, but doesn't really give the brothers a choice.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of like, so we can do this, or we can not. Well, then you'll never get let out of here. You'll just be kept in here for eternity. So no choice then. Okay.
Right. It was either forget or was it imprisoned?
Yeah, for the rest of
never get to leave this room.
Yeah.
I like how when the brothers defended that, we're keeping it secret, Asandi pointed out that you can't control how the next generation will use it, or how the 3 of you will, in some time of need, change your minds. Yeah.
Who's got a paperback copy?
I do.
Do you have page 399?
Oh, yeah, I had wonky pages here.
Because I just flipped to that page and I'm like, wait, I have the same page repeated twice.
But I also had one page missing. I figured this was how we got back on track to having even odd pages. And I think
I've been reading off this version, but you're absolutely right. That's exactly the same page. That's so good.
Yeah, like $3.99, and
Yeah.
it's like ends. The very last of it is the little flashback of the Seadler as it killed, and then it starts that whole page, and then the next page is repeats, starts the same way and repeats the entire page. I'm like, why do I have? And then it goes to 400, and I'm like, okay.
That's funny.
Okay.
Yeah. There was also a page missing earlier. I was going to say something else. Yes, the number 7, I was wondering if it has a real world counterpart, like some group of 7 countries that decided to not do nuclear weapons. I couldn't find one, like with a quick Google search, but I was wondering if that maps to something in our world. But yeah.
Not that I know of, but we can ask Jenny next time.
Yeah.
Show you there.
Yeah, that'd be a good question to save for her.
All right, so that's.
We also found out why Johnny called the 7 a destructive power when she gave us that reading material, not reading material, the extra material during the Curse of Mistrait. And some of the lore felt familiar from, again, that same extra stuff.
Oh, from her notes, yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was really cool that the dragon things can dream the worlds into being. That was awesome. Yeah, there's a lot happening in that section. Yeah.
But really interesting. I was sort of a bit disappointed that Dakar keeps on thinking, "Oh my god, like I'm in big trouble with Asandir," and then nothing really ends up happening to him bad. Like, like come on. Like,
apparently, just being stuck with Arathon is such a big punishment that Asandir doesn't feel the need for any other.
Yeah, whatever. Everything can deal with you. Asandir's probably like, it's so great. Or it's thinking, it's like so great. I don't have to deal with him. But then he's like, this sucks. I keep having to deal with him even though I don't want to.
So I was wondering about the depth of Dakar's hatred for Arathon. I mean, it felt semi-serious in the beginning, but now he's actually trying to get him killed, like actively. So I'm trying to figure out where that's coming from. Like it started with the first misunderstanding on his part, where Asandi so he misinterpreted an interaction between Arathon and Asandi, right, in Curse of the Mistrait. And then since then, it's, I guess, Arathon paid him back in kind for his rudeness, and it's been deteriorating. But I am somewhat failing to understand what it was that makes it so bad for him that he is willing to kill him.
Well, I think somewhere in these chapters, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe it was the ones before. Somewhere, I remember Arathon. I think Dakar believed that Arathon used the children on purpose. Like,
it's in a discussion with Asandir. Yeah,
actually pushed him into that. Whereas I don't think Dakar realized that that's what the clansmen were doing, anyways, by having the children go out and they have a task.
As far as Dakar's concerned, Arathon's is a child murderer.
Yeah, right. I think he thought that Arathon ordered that, and that he put the children in harm's way on purpose. And I still, at this point in chapter 10, I think he still believes that.
But there's the opportunity where he actually tells Arathon for the first time that's what he's hanging on him, and I thought Arathon was going to come back and say, actually, no, that wasn't me. But again, he laps him off with it. There's also the interpretation. I don't think I'd seen this before, where Dakar actually says that Lysair was his best friend at one point. I don't think I'd seen that necessarily before, but that was like a bit of a revelation as to how close their relationship was.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I remember.
Why didn't you sign me to Lysair? Or he at least was my friend. Or
friend, yeah.
Right. That's
there's
right.
a later thing where he's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but he got fully and I wouldn't say there was any negativity there, but he got fully taken in by Lysair's charisma.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and just the back and forth of Earthen showing him up, and and they're similar, like he confronts him about the child thing, and it's where you can see Earthen being uh in some ways similar to Asandir, as he has the opportunity there, he could correct his you know a misconception, but because he's follows the same sort of principles that a Sundir does. He's like, no, you're just accusing me of it. You have to actually ask. You have to actually be willing to take that step. And Dakar's not. So Erethan's just like, yeah, whatever.
Mm.
Right, because otherwise he would just think he's lying or something like that. You'd
Yeah.
have to ask with probably with a bit of an open mind, rather than having preconceived grudge.
Yeah. But and it's also interesting how, from Lysair's point of view, that Lysair thinks the Fellowship are very pro Arathorn. They're very much his cabal and protecting him, whereas Arathorn's very much eschewing anything to do with it, and he just wants to hide it in the middle of the water. And not get involved with any of it. It's kind of, I would say these chapters are very much like the training montage, where people get their stuff together, they start training and doing all of that kind of stuff, kind of maneuvering themselves in a position, kind of build their forces or whatever else they're going to do before
Planning,
the big
yeah.
battle. Yeah, at the planning stage, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that comes out a little bit later on, I think, with what you said about Lysaia there, because
Yes.
because he goes to make the bargain with the Coriani
yeah.
witch there, because what was it he offered her?
It was the power stone, or
The
The
waystone.
location is the waystone.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is that? Do we know yet? We don't know yet, right?
It's mentioned, in Curse briefly, with Dakar and I believe Traith and Lysair. Is Dakar's, Lysair's helping Traith, look for, royal jewels for, I think, the one of the heirs that they had in secret. And Dakar's like, "What's that?" And Traith's like, "Don't touch that." But ends up exposing the wrapping, and then he's all like, oh, "That's the waystone of the Coriathine." And it's like, can't see my look, but Traith is probably just like, "Really? Can you not keep your mouth shut? Maybe you should just be like, go get me to something to cover this up and shut up."
Yeah,
Mm.
that was an interesting segment in that. I think that was in chapter 11 where he makes the bargain with the Coriani, Coriani,
Yeah.
which the and he we get a little bit more insight into his upbringing when during that chapter too.
Yes.
And that was that was a great character building segment there for Lysaia, even though and we don't want to like him, but we're still getting a lot of character building on his part. But he makes that bargain and gets like the vision of where Arathon is at that point, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought at the time when Lyser looks at the waystone in Satvir's storage, I think Satvir, if I remember correctly, says all the Koreani enchantresses have to do is ask, and we'll give it back to them. Right? They're not secretly hide. I mean, they are secretly hiding it, but they won't withhold it from them if they are asked. And at the time, the impression, I think that gave me a sort of negative impression of the enchantresses. But then we found out, I think it was in this chapter, what the waystone was used for, and the enchantresses were apparently using it to do a lot of good. in the world, and the Fellowship has been withholding the stone from them all this time. So I think that gives us a sort of negative angle on the Fellowship as well, and puts the Koreani in a more positive light for us a little bit. So I thought that was
It
interesting.
kind of. We still, have to look at it through the, we haven't peeled it back too far here, but through the lens of what are the, the priorities of the seven versus the Koreani. So it's like we're thinking, it's like, okay, they're using this to, you know, um, do all these things, and the Koreani would see it as good, but that's according to their priorities. Whereas obviously the seven's priorities may differ and be like, no, this is not good. And we don't know exactly what their, priorities are beyond um, the seven seem to be more focused on um, uh, I guess the planet as a whole is a way to put it. And the long, more long term, you know, um, with the well being of the planet and the Paravians and whatnot.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
But with the information we're given so far, it does raise questions, though.
Yeah.
Like who's in the right here? Because I think we're still figuring a lot of that out.
Yeah. Is anybody right though? It's just these are just events that are happening. They're both good and bad. Although I do think, and again, it comes across in these 4 chapters that actually people outside the world are still very distrusting of shadow and dark. As a general concept. That the idea that he does use shadow as a way to mask traveling around, that kind of stuff. People are still very distrustful. A bit like what Johnny was saying. She wanted to write something that challenged this notion, but actually still within the world. It is very much a common held thing that dark is where evil lurks or where bad things happen, and that Arathon, just by general being the way he is and being how he approaches things, is still kind of easy to distrust, and it needs kind of his personal touch, like the bit with the mother of the 2 twins, etc. He has to go and sort of win her over and kind of use his humanity to kind of say, look, I'm not evil. I want to do this. This is important for you and for your children.
It's kind of funny though that he took up that role of kind of being a sort of father figure to those kids in Merior, the town Merior, and kind of almost taking charge of their upbringing to a point. And the basically he pretty much captured Janess, like kidnapped her.
He did,
and took her on a boat.
He didn't
and
pretty
like
much.
all
He
the
did.
townsfolk are like, "Oh, good for her, yay!" And I'm like, I was like, I don't know if that could he could get away with that nowadays.
Let's be clear. He broke into your house and captured her.
Yeah, he kidnapped her. Yeah, everybody's going along with it. I was like, wow.
Yeah, the rest of the townsfolk are like, oh, good, something that'll make her stop moping around in her house all the time.
Yeah, I'll have to ask Janie about that sometime, because I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's how you just get somebody out of their trouble. Just kidnap them and bring their kids along on a boat ride. I mean, they're on the sea for 3 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
Down to Inish. I don't remember how far it was, but it's it gets there faster than normal, because they have that whole exchange where she ends up questioning his integrity, and he just kind of he's just like kind of walls himself off from her at that point.
Yeah, he doesn't explain everything right away.
That's right.
And that that's another thing, is like how would Janess feel if you get kidnapped on a boat and you're not getting stuff explained to you, you know, and I just thought that it was kind of hilarious, really, the whole the whole situation there.
Yeah, it was almost played a bit like farce. It was almost like one of those kind of sequences that has like a jaunty soundtrack or something in the background to kind of show you that this is played for fun a little bit.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good term, a jaunty background. It's
Yeah.
music.
It's because I think it's described that like Arathon has that smile on his face, where he's a bit scampish the whole way through it. You know, he's very much very cheekily looking in through a window, kind of getting her to come to the door, break in. You know, throw her over the shoulder kind of thing, throw her in the boat, tie her up. You know, and here we
Yeah, it didn't
go.
do tying up, but even when they get exchanges, or like when he reveals the name of the the sloop, you know, um, and she's laughing about it, well, she's outraged and laughing, but it's clear she's not. She's like, why are you? Don't do this. Come on, you know, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then we have. Uh,
I think what is interesting before we move on from that is that Dakar is throwing a lot of guilt at Arathon for murdering a lot of children, but yet all of the instances that he sees of Arathon actually working with children actually are totally the opposite. You know, he would have been always drunk in the tavern a lot of this time and, not really paying attention. As you say, like he almost becomes like a father figure to those two twins, and trying to do good. There is evidence there for Dakar if he wants to look for it, that actually what he thinks is not necessarily what happened.
yeah, but
Yeah.
Dakar's at this point after the whole debacle at the at Alestron. Dakar's like, nothing I do, he's 5 steps ahead of me.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to drink myself silly. then he can't it's like I can't get ahead of him. I'm just going to make myself dead weight.
Yeah, it's a very Dakar solution to a problem.
He's also drinking himself silly because he's trying to stop a prophecy from coming. I forget if we've seen that before or if this is the first time, because I've been looking for explanations for why Dakar drinks so much. This is one of them, I guess. But I'm trying to remember if he did this before.
Not necessarily drinking, but he's done stuff to disrupt. He get the feeling it's going to happen, and he's done stuff to disrupt before.
Mhm.
Like I think in Kersey, he drops the Lithiel, the sword, because he started to get a premonition, and he's like, no, I don't want he's like, my big prophecy is going to be fulfilled. I don't want this ruined. I don't want to see that. And then he confides to Asandir. He's like, they're going to come to blows, brothers or not. And Asandir's like, you dropped Lithiel to distract yourself. And he's like, yes, if they're going to fight, let me be the last one to know. And I'm like, oh. And he does bites his lip at one point really hard to break one off, I think, from happening. Plus, sometimes he gets like, it isn't even like a full vision, but he'll get just like a little thing. Like, I think there's a bit somewhere here where he mentions he thinks he smelled smoke. Like something burning.
Yeah, he definitely has avoidance problems.
I'm wondering why that is. Is it that if he doesn't make the prophecy, the thing he's about to prophesy won't happen? Or does he just not want to know ahead of time that bad things are going to happen?
I think some of it's, from what we know of him, is not wanting to know bad things, because I think, he's, we've got the Black Rose as a big thing, but I think he's seen some pretty terrible stuff via his, visions, and that's sort of why he's like, yeah, no, I don't want to deal with this. I'm just going to drink myself silly.
Yeah. If you've been seeing bad things for 500 years, you might want to do the same.
where it's a case of, and it may not everything, comes true, but he sees a lot of what could be. So even if it doesn't come true, he sees something pretty terrible happening. And has to, live right through it. And like, And I just kind of like, and rather than take the advice of the seven, where they're like, yeah, if you crack down to your training and whatnot, you'd probably get a control over this. But because I think they imply at one point if he bothered to actually apply himself in training, he would gain control over the gift. But I think he'd be dealing with a point, but from in that process where, because he remarks that when he's not when he's sober and clear-headed and everything, and starts to go into mage trance to do mage stuff, is puts him in the mind frame or in the state where he easily can trigger it. So he'd probably have this huge adaptive period where he's just constantly getting foresight, vision, and whatnot, just flooding him because he's trying to get control of it.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then I think, let's see, we have chapter 11. Chapter 11 that's where we see
Jarrett comes back, right?
Is it
To
Yeah.
Merior?
I thought there was 11 also had,
but it also has the Lysair
That's
taking
a
on
Lysair.
Minel,
Esquil and
That's in the bargain section of that chapter. But before that, I think we see Jarrett come back.
Okay.
He's older now, and
he renews
we
his
also
bond.
see,
and
we also see like some of the depths of Arathon's planning.
Yes.
With the means that he got the lumber to start building ships, and how the money that was waylaid or something like that, or stolen from a caravan or something like that.
That's right.
That
Lysair's own money that he's
Lysair's money that he's using.
Manel took for him and gave to him. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh, Lady Manel. That's right. Yeah. And so there was a lot of planning that went into that whole operation, and it's starting to come to fruition a little bit here. And so that the depths of what he's doing seem to be just as involved as all the planning that Lysair is doing on the other side with the kingdom building, and I thought that was a good contrast there.
Yeah. There's that bit where Arathon says, well, what would you have me do? Like, what am I supposed to do in this situation? He's lost his mage powers. His mage sight's gone. He doesn't want to put people in danger, so he's basically going to wage a battle out on sea where he feels more comfortable, and then he not have to put people at risk and have people like Jared even fighting for him, and have them. Although I fear that actually that's going to be taken out of his hands in the short term, insofar as Lysair is just going to hunt everybody down associated with him, like he's done with Minel, and the people will die because of him. But you're right insofar as the amount of planning that's going on. They're both planning in their own separate, different ways here, and almost like the totalitarianism, whatever that word is, that Lysair's doing by basically conquering and kind of taking over all the member states that are around it to kind of build up his forces and his army to become this kind of unstoppable force. And Arathon, who's trying to be elusive, live in shadow, and kind of move around until a point that he considers, I built up enough of a force here to go and fight in at least some way.
I like that Arathon's also is just like, well, I can't sway the people the way Lysair does, but I'm just going to attack him in the most mundane and crippling of ways, and that's in logistics. He's like, yes, you can mass this huge army of 40,000 or whatnot, and get them to come after me, but how long can you keep them fed and supplied and paid?
More of attrition. Even the idea of siege, that they're gonna take a city by siege or otherwise, and he's like, let them. That's those are expensive. Those are hard to keep going. Let them do that.
But now that let's see Talith.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, we get some good
I
insight into
kind
her
of feel
character.
bad for her because she's just like, yeah, no, he's left me sitting here. I'm done with this. Screw him. Um, but his presence and whatnot, just she's like moth to a flame, and just
Yeah,
Can help herself.
she even knows it, and she's like,
his charisma takes over there, and it was now that he knows where Arathon is, like I'm starting to wonder how much destruction is going to be along his path to get there. Um, hopefully we'll find that out soon. But
Yeah. I'm very nervous about the people at Merior meeting the same fate as the clansmen.
mm,
But also, Ilera said that if Lysa does show up, and if I think it's a thought she has to herself in the next chapter, that he won't survive the encounter if they do meet because he doesn't mean to fight back or something to that effect, if I remember correctly. So he just needs to keep running. So hopefully, I don't know. The passage in the last chapter, I think, when we are told that Sathvi did not notice the interaction between the Koreani enchantress and Lysair, that made me sad for a few hours because I'm like, no, now Lysair is going to catch up and people at Merior are going to die.
mm,
Hopefully that doesn't happen. I don't know, but it seems like Lysair may make it to Merior before Arathon's done building his ships.
maybe, yeah, that's uh,
possible.
that's the tension right there. But that's another thing that came up was Alera showing up
Yeah.
Hmm.
in her capacity here, um, where the line in there was the unparalleled cold purpose of binding with ties of affection. And so I thought that was very, we know she cares about him, but also she's on a mission.
Hmm.
And she's really a conflicted character, I got to say. And I found that very interesting. Um, their conversations, they're trying to save the boy's life, right? Or
Yeah.
is his
That's in,
life?
Yeah.
in chapter 12.
12, yeah.
Yeah.
Where he does all the, where she had before that she'd basically gone with, well, I've been ordered to do this,
Hmm.
and so she's doing, I guess, fulfilling it to the letter, but not the spirit. She's
Right.
like, I'm here. If he ignores me, you know, that's him. I can't control that. But I am here trying to seduce him by being present, but not really making much of an effort.
Yeah. And so she's wrestling with her purpose, really.
Yeah,
And that's a
Yeah.
fascinating.
paying lip service to it. Basically, she's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna. I'm told I have to be here. I will sit here, but that's all I'm gonna do.
Yeah. Ironically, I think she would have been less successful at it if she had tried more overtly or more explicitly to bind him in his
Maybe.
friendship.
Yeah.
But because she did not, he actually trusts her now, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he gives some very sage advice about living for the approval of others being a pitfall and a fault that begged a false turning and stuff like that. And um, so that just puts more conflicting emotions in her head about how things are going here. um and then she blurts out that she just fallen in love with him at the end of the chapter, right?
Hmm.
And I'm kind of wondering because in that conversation, in that exchange when they're trying to save the kid, and um she's using her mage sight, right?
Yes.
And I wonder um, how different the conversation would be between her and Arathon if Mage Sight wasn't involved. Like, how much insight did that give her specifically? It's hard to tell because we only have it is what it is, you know. But I'm wondering, it'd be a question I would like to ask Janie is how much does that give a person in a conversation? Is it an advantage, or is it even a hindrance of some sort to have that much insight into another person? And
Mm.
I was very
Mm.
curious about how that all went down and how different that scene might have been without mage insight. You know what I mean?
It's possible. Yeah, I see where you're going with that, but I did think it was interesting too that the um, union of her mage talents and whatnot work in pairing with his bardic gifts,
Mm.
and how that just sort of spontaneously produced a um, strong emotional tie between them that um, sort of mentioned it is where it's that they've got a lot more insight into each other than um, yeah, she sees into him and he sees into her, basically.
And it wasn't accidental, right? It was a deliberate connection so they could work together.
Right. They formed the link while they were doing the healing,
Mm.
and the uh in the after effects of it, of the union, it somehow it went from a temporary to his bardic skills and her talents linked,
Mm.
so they have an empathic link now.
Mm.
It's
Oh,
briefly
interesting.
mentioned
I
there
Is
somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, is
Yeah,
it
yeah.
both ways, or is it just her into him?
It is both ways.
It is both ways because he
Yeah.
doesn't have the mage sight. So I was wondering about that.
But I think he can feel the effects of hers on him. Like she knows, or he knows when she sees that he has no mage sight. That's very. He realizes that just the same point that she does.
Mm.
Okay, yeah.
I was curious what that scene would have been if Arathon didn't have music and had made sight instead. Would he just have done a whole lot of magic? I guess he would have woven
That too,
something
yeah.
like the Fellowship did. Yeah, I was curious about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That bit interested me because we talked about this kind of, maybe it was with Johnny, when we talked about how he couldn't be both a mage and a bard. He would never fulfill his potential at both. I think it was you brought that up first at the time, but actually, sort of conveniently or not, the story has meant that his mage sight's been completely blocked off,
Mm.
so they could reach sort of a
Yeah.
potential in his bard skills, so that maybe at a
Mm.
further stage when his mage sight returns, he becomes kind of this all more powerful, and he is forced to use what skills that he has right now to affect the outcome,
Mm.
like the healing of the boy. Whereas maybe if he had his mage sight and maybe had his mage powers, he would have approached it a completely different way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And the bard skills are not insignificant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really good.
They might even be more powerful, it seems like, because of what happened on was it the solstice or the equinox? I forget.
Mhm.
But
Solstice.
yeah, the solstice, when he re-triggers the Paravian lines. I don't know. I'm
Right.
saying all the wrong words, but I guess you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was very powerful magic,
Yeah.
right? And it seemed like it could be more. Um,
I love how the bard skills aren't a million miles away from how music functions in society anyway. Do you know what I mean? As a
Mm.
mood setter and something that can change. It's just like in his bard skills so enhanced, it can literally control the ebb and flow of thought and
Yeah.
and of experience. I think I
Yeah.
really like
Mm.
that part of it.
It's really cool
Yeah.
how she does that and how she explains it in the story.
It's I'm trying to remember if it comes up, but yeah, it's sort of goes into it's like what is sound,
Energy. Yeah.
yeah, and vibration, and I think this is kind of our first hint of if you dig into it, if I remember correctly, it's sort of going into like quantum, physics stuff, and like
Mm.
and a little bit of string theory there.
Well, at least music theory tied into that.
Yeah.
I can tell Jenny's a musician just by reading this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's
Very clear.
it's really prevalent. It's beautiful. It's nice.
You can imagine though if you were a certain type of person and you were like, oh God, there's a pretty girl over there. Where's my guitar? You know? Oh, this is gonna be easy. I've got a wee tune just for this.
And then you can just kidnap her and bring her on a ship.
But you have like, but yeah, like you say with the music, you've got like, it's like, just listening to music, has an effect on your, you know,
Yeah.
on your brain, and so it's like, yeah, you listen to this and it, produces an actual tangible effect, and
Yeah. I think there were at least, I don't know, 5 or 6 different descriptions of Arathon playing music, and each one felt different. It did not feel repetitive or overdone or anything like that, like you might maybe expect, but each one felt different, and it also sort of built the world and the story a bit more. I just love how the whole thing is done with Arathon bringing his Lyranth out. I'm like, yes, I'm here for it. I'm going to read this with so much care.
It's like his etherealness of the music kind of meshes with the metaphysical or something of Valera was doing, which is seeing the knitting of the bones and kind of seeing how the bones all fit together and how that swirls with the music. Oh, it's just so beautifully written. And I think that struck me, like it probably happens to everybody else when they're reading every kind of couple of pages or couple of chapters, you kind of forget how amazingly written a lot of this is, that you kind of go like, this is just, what the hell? Like, I've been reading pages and pages, but sometimes it just has such, resonance with the events that are happening. You just kind of go, oh crap, like this is otherworldly.
Yeah. I highlighted so much during this section. I think
I like the healing bits. It's like,
Yeah.
It's like this, they did a merger, but it's like this whole beautiful symmetry of like, extremely technical and extremely artistic at the same time, because she's all doing the very technical stuff and he's um, playing it out as art basically.
Yeah. And we see that even in the magic that Asandir and Sethway do together. There's a lot of mysterious sounding things, but then there's also like really well done specifics. Like they said something for direction, it's a beacon, so they have to draw light from somewhere. So there's a lot of technical details, if you want to call it that, and interwoven with things to make it seem so magical and mysterious. The balance there with the detail, I love how that is done as well.
And you even see that with how they coordinate the spell for the beacon for Cardamon with the death of Minel. They're like, we can use the events, the power and energy of those events that are happening in the real world to enhance basically what is this spell that we're trying to cast.
Yeah.
Another good example of that.
Yeah, the Fellowship was not happy with the death of Lady Manel. I found that interesting.
Yeah. For like half a second, I thought they were going to do something to save her, but no.
No. They're keeping to is it like a vow? This, stay out of affairs, what have you.
Yeah, and I think with their numbers down too, they're again still stuck in that case of none of us
Yeah, they explained that in one section, I think, how somebody was unable to look over something because they were so short-handed, and I don't remember exactly where that was, but that has come up several times, I think.
Well, especially now that they can't find Cardamon anywhere, like his bat signal's turned off. I keep on using comic book references, but that's the general idea. They just can't find him, and they're trying to put a signal up to say, come make connection with us, which kind of just leads you to expect it. Where is he? And as usual in these things, he just could be anywhere. I've no idea. There's too many possibilities.
Yeah. I was going to say something else. Yeah, I think in this book, I don't think we saw as much or maybe even any of it in Curse of the Mistake. We see how the magic is coordinated a lot with the time of day, with the time of year, like solstice and equinox are special.
Mm,
The magic that Setvir and Asandi are weaving, they had to do different things at different times of day. They had to do a full 24-hour cycle, I think, and then wait for 15 days or something. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah, I don't know if it means anything, but yeah, it's just a really cool feature of the world, I guess. And Elera was doing the same thing with her magic as well. I think she had to do something again at noon, or there was at some point when the magic she had woven could unravel. It was related to time of day, so there is some parallel, I guess, between they're using the same source to do magic, except they do it in different ways. And it sounds like what the Fellowship does keeps the world in balance, while the enchantresses potentially leech away at the balance. Maybe one of the reasons why the Fellowship is withholding the Waystone from them. I don't
Interesting theory.
mm.
Yeah, and I think from what I've heard Janie say before, she'll probably tell us it's all there.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but
uh,
uh, when Lysair was speaking to Lady Manal, he was kind of giving her this speech, this kind of like demagogue speech, really,
Mm,
where he's like saying, "I'm the defender of peace against a man with no conscience," and he said, um, "The great of this land, of which she was one of them, diminish us all when they fall under like Arathon's sway," you know. And I was just like, "Wow, this guy's something else."
yeah. He's no self awareness, is what I was coming. Like he's very much
yeah.
Yep.
talking about himself, and a lot of measures.
Yeah. Yeah. If he did nothing, then nothing would happen.
That's
So
fair.
he's responsible for all the bloodshed that is potentially to come. Though I am feeling slightly encouraged by the fact that 3 books down, the book is titled Fugitive Prince. So maybe there's no war yet. um, yeah, I was also, I think, maybe it was Chibipo or maybe it was you, Chris, earlier on. You brought up a contrast between how Arathon was getting things done and Lysair. But there was an additional point there. I thought it's interesting that Lysair gets whatever he wants using his charm, and Arathon usually wins confidence with his competence by just being
Mm,
good at things,
Good point.
and just very clever, and earns trust by working for it. Um, yeah, I think that was a very interesting contrast in their characters. Like things seem to come easily to Lysa. He is doing a lot of work in the background, but he's sort of this big manipulator who just like delegates, I guess.
yeah,
And Arathon is actually working for everything that he's getting. So yeah, I mean, we all, I, I guess we all, I speak for all of us when I say we already like Arathon a lot more than Lysa at this point. That's one of the things that adds to it, I
yeah,
suppose.
yeah. I think when you get instances like Talitha's, we get a sense of what her true feelings are, who she normally is as a person, is kind of free spirit, wants to live in the moment, kind of
Mm,
deal with people as they come, and then as soon as she's in his presence, she loses control of what she wants. Even to the point that she objects very much in the moment to him stand beside him. He says, "We're going to be married in this date," and you can see that she very clearly doesn't want to be married at that stage,
yeah.
but is sort of powerless to even in the moment say, "That's not what I want." She just kind of
Mm,
goes along with it, and then that's what happens. And lost in his power of his personality or beauty or whatever he has hold over.
mm, yeah. Yeah. I think that was one of the he gets his way inputs that we have.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there were things I think in this section that, like Jared said, made me appreciate Lysa, or at least like hate him a bit less. I wasn't here for the last discussion, but the part where he stops slaves, stops some clansmen from being taken as slaves, and I forget which bit here, but I think there were sections in this as well that made me not hate him as much. So I guess we're sort of trying to balance out um, the two princes. Maybe I don't know. I don't know if we
I
will.
think it's just the fact that we know he's under a curse,
Yeah.
and he really believes what he's doing is right, even though we know how screwed up that is. But so sometimes I try to remember that he's under this
Yeah.
curse, and so I'm trying to look for something good, you know.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's tough sometimes because then he comes out and says
Mhm.
stuff like that, and it's like, okay,
Yeah. um, yeah. Was there anything else that?
well, we did see some of Arathon's sense of chivalry come out again when, of course, Alara actually professes her love for him, and he's like, no, don't, for your life's sake, don't, because he's showing concern for her fate, because she's not supposed to break these vows she has for the enchantresses there, and
Yeah.
and also I think yeah, he's concerned for her life, but also it had something to do with he gave her vow back to her. He stated it back to her. All states of fleshly desire to renounce. This I vow. All ties of the heart, of family, of husband and love are to put aside. This I vow. And of course, she's like stunned, like, oh yeah. Way to put a damper on this stuff. But so I mean, it was a little bit over the top, actually, a little Shakespearean, there in his
Yeah.
little speech back to her. But
Mm.
that was a huge point of chivalry on his part, that and they kind of just had to accept it almost.
Yeah. I did wonder at what point the vow kicks in, because she did kiss him, right?
Mhm.
And that's a tie of the flesh that should have melted her brain. Apparently, so should that have been a clue to Arathon that things are not quite as they seem, like that she's not maybe necessarily bound by them, or does someone have to pass judgment and then her brain melts? Yeah, I was curious about that.
Yeah, I don't know. He's obviously not willing to test it any further.
Yeah. Mhm.
So that was like right at the end of the last chapter.
That was the very last section. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So very cool. I can't wait now to get to the last two.
You're gonna
Yeah.
go straight into the reading room, Jared,
Oh,
and
well,
continue on.
I gotta cook the family dinner first, but after that, yeah.
Straight in, and then return the library book.
Yes. Or hold it hostage, one or the other.
Oh, hold it hostage. Yes, whatever.
Well, if Arathon could, you can.
Yeah. You have to try and find me first.
Any other parting thoughts before we do outros?
Not for me.
No, that was good.
Cool. Right. Yeah. So Chibi Po, do you want to send us off with where we can find you? We may have lost him.
Oh.
Jared.
Oh, wait, is he back? Okay. All right. Once again, I'm my YouTube channel is a fantasy thinker. put up a couple of videos a week if I can, and I do haunt the page chewing forums every day or so, and I'm on Instagram at the Fantasy Thinker as well. So that's for me.
Cool.
And me, you can find me on my YouTube channel at Chris Mona, MOHAN. You can probably find me in the page tune forums as well if you want to check us out there and check out upcoming streams, that kind of stuff. And until 2 weeks' time. Yee.
And you can find me on my channel, Reading by the Rainy Mountain. Direct ways to reach me on the About page. I hang out on the page doing forum quite a lot. And yeah, come check us out there if you'd like to join this read along or any others that we have coming up. We've got Malazan, we've got The Prince of Nothing happening again, I guess, and Science Fiction Masterworks coming up.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. See you in 2 weeks.